Hello and welcome to Enquire to Choir. My name is Eva and I'm here to help you, fellow choir people. In this video, we're going to handle a difficult topic: how to get your choir's respect as the choir's director. I know this seems a bit simple when it comes to the channel because we talked about so many things, but I get this question a lot. You inform me about your situations where you are standing in front of a choir and they're always confronting you about everything. They don't listen what you say, they do it differently, they think they know better than you. Or you are a new choir director who is coming from the choir, so you were once a singer and now you're starting to be their choir director and the balance is off, you don't know how to approach it. Or you have never been a choir director and this is your first time and you struggle with gaining the authority and the respect you want out of your choir. I just want to point out that I do not know your situation in particular. You're coming to this video and I cannot possibly know what you're going through. I know from my experience that things can be tough, but I'm sure that some of you are going through the extremes. It is really difficult to sum up the answer to this question because there are so many possibilities. But I have thought about it a lot, I've thought it through, and I tried to sum up general things that I believe that will be helpful. And just to prove my point that things take time, in the last part of the video, I will share my experience because I don't want you to think that things that I'm talking about on this channel came to me naturally. I had to really work for them and I really had to make mistakes. So I will share a few situations that I can share here just to give you some relief when it comes to, are you the only person that had to go through everything you're going through? No, we've all been there and that's just the way it goes because being a choir director means you're telling a group of people what to do and not all groups are susceptible to that. All that said, we are now prepared and let's start with the video, how to get your choir's respect as a choir director. First of all, let me start by saying, probably you will have to let go of certain things. For example, if you have been in the choir and now have become the choir's director, you are no longer a part of that group. You are the group's leader, which is a different thing. If you think that in any case, you as the choir director can be one of them, in my opinion, that is something you have to let go of. It sounds really rude, but you will never be one of them again because, to put it simply, they're singing, you are not. You're going through different situations. That means that being their friend is separated than being their choir director. The communication is different. And you can try to be their friend, and I am my choir singer's friend all of the time. But when we are at the rehearsal, my role is understood and my communication is different. We have a saying here in Croatian, družba je družba, služba je služba, which means friendship is friendship, business is business. And in this case, it doesn't matter if you're officially a choir director. If you have been appointed to be the choir director, you are in a different position. So if you think about being respected as being likable, that's a dead end. You cannot think like that because you will always get disappointed. You will never be liked by everyone. That's just not how it goes. Not in life, not in choirs. That was a really hard lesson for me because I thought that getting respect from my choir means being liked by them. And that's not true. Being respected as a choir director by my choir means I say what they have to do and they do it without questioning it. That means to get respect. I know you want to make your choir happy, but your choir will be happy if they're singing well and feel comfortable in the choir. They will not be happy if the only thing is that they like you. That doesn't make a choir happy. It just makes things easier. So what you have to get is their respect and the level of authority and the level of communication that is really effective with your choir. And that is not always easy, and it takes time. It took years for some of my choirs to get them to trust me. And there is a video here on the channel which is really old and nobody watches it, but I think it's very important. How to get your choir's trust. Be sure to check it out. Things take time. If you want to get their trust and the respect, you have to do things to get them, but not in a, oh, I hope they're happy. Oh, I hope I don't step on anything. Oh, I hope I don't offend anyone. That's not how that goes. You get respect from your choir by being a good choir director. And when I tried to sum up all of the things that could help you, I realized that things can be put in 4 instructions. So how to get your choir's respect? Instruction 1 is know your rights and know your job. Listen, as I said, you are not a part of the group. You are a part of the system, but you're not a part of the choir. You're not. And if you try to be, you will never win. You can try to understand what they're going through, and that's a huge part of your position, but you will never be a choir singer. You're instructing all of the choir singers. Knowing your job and knowing your rights means also knowing your obligations and responsibilities. There is a really good saying that I once read in a very old book that said, the more responsibilities you have, the more authority you should have. That is something that should be communicated with your choir and with your choir management. I know it's difficult to get in front of a group and immediately getting respect. And if you think that that will happen just because you stand in front of them and they're your friends or they're your colleagues and then they know you, that means that they will listen to you. It doesn't happen immediately. It doesn't happen like that necessarily. But you have to know your position and your job. What is your job as a choir director? It is very simple. You are the only one who can hear the whole choir sound. Nobody from the choir is in your physical position. So in any case, it doesn't matter what they can hear, because the cumulative effect of a choir sound is known only by you. That is knowing your position and knowing your job. That is a simple truth that is always true. If they're singing in a choir and they're countering your opinion, you can always say, that may be true for your part of the choir, but I am standing in front of the whole choir, and that reality is not this reality. That means knowing your job. Also, you're put in that position to make the choir sound good, to make them learn the scores, to make them attend the rehearsals, to make them do the things you want them to do. That is literally your position. You do not have to ask anyone's permission. You probably have to communicate in a certain way to accommodate everyone in the choir management. And there are rules you have to follow when it comes to the choir, because you cannot choose everything and you can't have everything your way. But when it comes to working with your choir, your position gives you the authority. So knowing your job and knowing your rights means in your mind, you will never have to apologize for wanting the choir to do what you instruct them to do. You can only think about the way how you will get them to do it, but there is no world where the choir director has to apologize for asking something of the choir. That is your literal position. That is your obligation. You're standing in front of a choir to make them do something in order to get them to sound better. So if you're coming to the choir thinking, oh, am I asking too much? Or, oh, can I ask them to do this? Or am I wrong to expect them to be willing to try things that I instruct them to do? The answer is always, you are the choir director. You have your job, you have your rights, you have your obligations, and you have the authority to ask them certain things. Of course, there are better and worse ways to do it. And no, please don't be one of those people who say, you have to do it because I am the leader. That doesn't work like that. That's a child, and we'll get to that. But if you're ever in doubt whether you are asking too much or that you have to constrain yourself because you don't have the power, always remember that you are the choir director and that is your job. And please define what characteristics that job has for you when it comes to your choir. And that is just the truth. 1 + 1 is 2. The choir director instructs the choir what they have to do. Know your job, know your rights, know your authority. How to get your choir's respect. Instruction 2. Know your stuff. I mean, it is very cool that you have the authority to ask your choir to do something, but you also have to know your stuff to show them that you know what you're doing. It's not just about you have to listen to me because I'm the choir director. It's about I know my stuff. I know my job. I've studied the scores. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I have to do. I am prepared. I have planned this rehearsal. I have planned the season. I know what I'm doing when it comes to this music score. I have analyzed it. I know my choir. I know my singers. I am prepared. Know your stuff. And I know what you're going to tell me. I'm not sure if I know. I'm not experienced. I don't feel comfortable because I don't know a lot of stuff. I don't know how to conduct. I don't know how to do a score. That may well be true, but please remember that you still know more than your choir. Because if you take the time to study some things, if you're here watching this video, if you're here on the channel trying to find the answers, you probably know more than the choir. That doesn't mean that you should become an egomaniac, instructing everyone that I'm watching Enquire to choir. That means that I know my stuff. I mean, that would be really cool. But no, you have to know your stuff. And when you know your stuff, the respect will come because you will emit a different energy. It's about the language you use. It's about the instructions you give. It's about the way how you handle a certain situation. If they are out of tune and you instruct them somehow and they become in tune, then they remember that and then they realize you know your stuff. So you get their respect. Because again, a choir director's job is to make the choir sing well, better. So if you make them achieve that, that is a win and they will remember that. It takes time. It really takes time. You don't win with just one win. Maybe it will take years, but you have to know your stuff and you always have to learn more. When you start working on a music score, things develop. You come into obstacles. You see a much bigger development than you ever expected. That is also a huge problem because it is one thing to try to get the choir to learn a score, but then you get to the score sounding really well and you have to correct certain things and you have to approach it in a different way. So things will take time, but if you take the effort, if you know your stuff, if you know that you've studied certain things, that you've read about certain things, that you've watched certain seminars, that means that you know your stuff. Maybe you don't know all of them. Maybe there's many more information you have to get, but in general, you always know more than your choir. Even if you have choir directors in the choir, you know more than them because you are the only one who can hear the whole choir, okay? But you have to work for it. You have to study. And with time, you will get more and more experience and knowledge and things will develop. Know your stuff. Knowledge is power. Instruction number 3, a huge one, consistency. Honestly, I think this is the reason why I got my choir's respect because I was consistent. And that translates into all the aspects of a choir work. There is a video here on the channel how to work with a new choir, and there are a lot of things said there. I recommend you watch it. But one of the things I say is when you come to a choir that you should take the time to set up rules, because that is the time. You know, when you come to the choir for the first time, you introduce yourself, you give your credentials or certain things, and then you set up rules. Rules can be very administrative, like rehearsals start at 7 o'clock. We do not start singing at 7:15. Rehearsals start at 7. I will be in front of the choir at 7 o'clock and at the piano in a few minutes to start the warm-up. The rehearsal consists of getting the scores. You have to sit down and you have to have the scores with you already. I don't want any walking during the rehearsal. Then we start the rehearsal by warming up. Then we do the scores. Then we do this. Okay, so there are certain rules. If you have rules, which are very helpful, you have to set them. And you have to be consistent. If you set the rules and then you, as a choir director, don't oblige to them, you lost. You will not get their respect because look at her, she's not even following her own rules. And if you tell me, well, I come to the rehearsal, but they don't want to sit down, they don't listen to me. I mean, you start your rehearsal at 7 o'clock. At 7:01, you are at the piano. You start the warm-up. While you may be afraid of the group that they will rebel against you, in most cases, if you just start the rehearsal, they will start singing with you. They will start conforming to your instruction. They will start to warm up because they know they have to warm up and you have started the warm-up, so they should warm up, okay? They should start singing. It works like that in many cases. There are extreme situations, we will get to them, but I believe that it's okay. Consistency is key. Don't schedule rehearsals and then don't arrive to the rehearsals. Don't be late for the rehearsals. Don't be unprepared for the rehearsals. Don't change the things all of the time. Don't change your instructions all the time. If you said at one rehearsal, this is crescendo, and the next rehearsal you say, no crescendo, no crescendo, change that. Okay, once or twice, music is music, that's okay. Some things have to be changed, but if you continually change your instructions, that frustrates the choir, and then they think that you don't know your stuff. And when they think that you don't know your stuff, they will lose their respect for you. And then they will start to be rebellious towards you. So consistency is a word that affects all of your work. Making the rules and following them. Making them safe in your consistency when it comes to your instructions. Don't change the repertoire all of the time. Make sure that the choir has its identity. Be consistent. And it could take a month, it could take several years. And for one of my choirs, it really took several years, 4 years to be exact, and the pandemic for things to become better. And this is the first season with one of my choirs that I feel like finally I got their respect, and they trust me and they follow my instructions without doubting me. So it is a long game. You have to play the long game. And if you have a bad rehearsal, you have to come to the next rehearsal. And if they're being really difficult, don't give up. Set yourself a rule that you will hang in there for 6 months. It doesn't matter what happens, but you will be there for 6 months. That helps you because that's a rule you have to follow. And you will give your best for 6 months. Because when you do that, when you set the consistency for you, for yourself, then you will be better because you will see that it is a longer path you have to walk on. So be consistent. If you're consistent with yourself, that translates to your instructions. The consistency of your instructions and your rules make the group of people more consistent. Just trust that works better than just yelling. Yelling gets you nowhere. Yelling is just empty words. And that takes me to the next instruction. Don't let your frustrations get the best of you. And actually, when I was thinking about this video, I wanted to say only this. If you are frustrated for whatever reason, being it a private reason, you're going through something, or you're frustrated because they're not listening to you, they don't respect you, something is not going right, and you lose your temper, you will not get the respect. For a very simple reason. You are the leader. And if you lose your temper, if you are frustrated and you translate that into your communication with your choir, they will be disappointed because as the leader, it is expected of you that they can be frustrated, but you know the solutions. Plus, if the frustrations get the best of you, you lose time. I've said this many times here on the channel. If something is not going right and you take 10 minutes to yell at your choir because something is not going right, why is it not going right? Why are you doing this? Why are you not doing it like we practiced so many times? I've already lost half a minute just yelling, and that is not productive. If you're going through something at home, because we always do, and if you come to the rehearsal and just make everyone miserable because of your pain that has nothing to do with the choir, you will lose their respect because they will feel responsible for your pains, and nobody wants to have that kind of a choir director because they want to forget about everything. Plus, družba je družba, služba je služba, business is business. I feel very frustrated when a business person takes all of his or her frustrations on me because I'm not the one to blame. I'm just here in a position of being able to be yelled at. And it's really rude to say, but our choir members don't want to see us weak. Gentle, vulnerable, emotional, yes, but weak in any way, I just, that doesn't go well. In any way. When it comes to our communication with the choir, when it comes to our communication and standing our grounds with the choir management, I'm not saying that you have to be rigorous or strict, but they don't want to see us weak because if they sense that we are weak, then they can manipulate us. And again, weakness does not mean not being emotional or adaptable or willing to compromise. It means not losing it. And if you tell me that there are situations where you have to lose it because you don't know what to do, you don't have experience, put it inside. Don't translate that frustration towards them because they're not the ones to blame. Okay, and now we come to the section, but Eva, because I know during my whole previous part you were saying, yeah, but Eva. Okay, so we're going to handle some of these buts. But Eva, I don't know my stuff. I don't have any experience. I'm very fresh. I'm new. Again, I said it. Doesn't matter how fresh you are. Doesn't matter how inexperienced you are. Doesn't matter how not a choir director you were before. You certainly do not know all the stuff. Neither do I. But I do know more than many of my choir singers. Just because I approach the music scores in a choir director way and not as a choir singer way. Plus, if you tell yourself that you cannot do something because you don't know it, then you've already decided that you're going to fail. You have to try. Every rehearsal is a new opportunity. You will have bad rehearsals, you will have extremely successful rehearsals, and you will have 10 bad rehearsals, and then on the 11th rehearsal it will be like, whoa. And your choir will be, whoa, this chick actually knows what she's doing. It just took 11 rehearsals to show. You don't know all the stuff, probably, but you know some. And I hope that changes your perspective. But Eva, they don't listen to me at all. When you have difficult choir members, when it comes to they have been in the choir for 30 years, they know best, they know the choir, and you're just a new person, you don't know anything. Then you have to collect the courage within you to communicate with them in a different way. It takes bravery to do that, but again, you have the authority. The choir director has the authority to instruct the choir singers. So it's not a questionable situation in any case. But the way you communicate is the key here. You can tell them, please be silent. You can yell, we're working here, we're singing, please stay quiet. If they're consistent and consistently stay disrespectful, you can tell them to leave. That is a very awkward situation, telling someone, okay, that's enough, please leave the rehearsal. I know what you're thinking, I cannot possibly do that. And there are situations when you can't do that. I'm very well aware of that because there are certain choir members. But if the rest of the choir is really frustrated with them, because you can feel that, because one part of the choir is working and they're continuously being disrespectful, you can tell them to leave. It is your right. If you can't do that, there is a certain powerful move you can do, and that is to stay quiet. Just sit there in silence until they finish talking. Does this make you uncomfortable as a viewer? That's what I'm talking about. When you're just not responding and you're just, not even listening to their speech, but you're just waiting for them to finish, the rest of the choir will start being silent, and the rest of the choir will, with their energy, make that singer stop talking. And after they finish their talk, you just go, are you done? Okay, sopranos, let's start again. That is a really difficult thing to do, but if you do it several times and if you show that you're not weak and that you're not going to go into conversation, because if you start a conversation, oh, but I wanted to do this, oh, I wanted to do it like that, oh, but I think I know, you're losing. They want to fight. And you just show them that you're so secure in your knowledge that it's like, are you done? Okay, let's start again. 1, 2, 3. But Eva, they counter my opinion all of the time. Okay. There is a way to do that. I just want to emphasize they're not wrong all of the time. When a choir singer raises their hand and says, but I'm worried about this part, I'm not sure if this is sounding right, I keep hearing someone that is out of tune. Whatever they say, you have a certain algorithm in your head, the way of thinking. When somebody does that to me, and I have people in the choir who do that to me consistently, I go through a certain algorithm of questions in my head that make me distinguish whether I should react or not and what the answer should be. The first question is, are they right? Because they could be right. The second question is, am I wrong? Because even if they're right doesn't mean that I'm necessarily wrong. Next question, have I studied this? Because there could be a situation when I'm not sure because I have not yet studied this particular situation, this particular place, this particular score well enough to know what the correct answer will be. Next question, do I know my stuff? Do I know this because of a previous situation? Am I sure? Again, maybe the answer is I'm not sure. I don't know. Next question, are they looking for trouble? Do they just want to argue? Do they want to show off themselves? Or they really know their stuff? And the last question, what is my job? Because if I develop the sense that I have to say that they're wrong, I want to get the final encouragement for that. So I remind myself what my job is and that I have the authority. To be completely honest with you, I have people in the choir who have managed to become an advisor when it comes to that. I learned that this is not a disrespectful thing necessarily, but sometimes the people in the choir are right. Of course, don't let them become, don't let them talk for 2 hours, but sometimes it helps you. But Eva, they ignore me. When they ignore you, it is a very direct thing you have to do. And this works. If they ignore you, you stop the rehearsal at a certain point and you tell them directly, plain and simple, listen, I know you think you know better, but you do not. I'm the one who can hear the whole choir. You are not in that position. If you don't start listening to me, if you keep on ignoring my instructions, you will get embarrassed when you hear what you sound like. Because maybe you're in tune, but you are not a choir. You don't have guidance because you keep resisting mine. I am the choir director. If you wish to be the choir's director, please let me know. We can switch positions. I don't have to be here, but you put me in this position, so you have to let me direct you. If that doesn't work, then, life's too short. But you can repeat it several times in a confident way and see what will change. There is a difference between saying, I'm the choir's director, you have to follow me, and saying, listen, I don't have to be here. Okay, so the way you communicate that is a different thing. And if they don't believe you, you can record them during the rehearsal. Please know that you have to tell them you're recording them, okay? It's not a given. You have to say, listen, we will try it your way now, and I will record it and you will listen to it. In most cases, they realize they really sound the way you tell them they sound, and they have to listen to you. If they don't trust your ears, then the recording is something that they cannot contraire. But Eva, my choir is a democracy. I have one of those ensembles. It is a very difficult thing when you are in a democracy, so you don't have the authority to handle all the decisions, but the ensemble gets their decisions with all the inputs. That is true, I understand that, but you do have some authority. Maybe you don't have the authority to choose things, but the way you work when it comes to music is your authority, because again, the position of a choir director is to stand in front of a choir, and when you explain to them, you have a very different perspective of the choir sound when you're in the choir and when you're standing in front of a choir. So I think you can communicate certain things when it comes to this, but I will acknowledge that the position of the authority is sometimes, in many cases, really narrow. I want to introduce some special mentions, okay, some special instructions. Number one, getting to that you don't always have the authority for many things. You can let the choir decide on certain things. You don't have to decide on all of the things as a choir director. For example, they can choose their repertoire, part of their repertoire, or they can choose 10 songs and you choose 2 songs from their group of songs. That shows that you're willing to let them define themselves, but then you work on their decision. They can decide sometimes on the tempo. It is true. Some songs can be sung in a different tempo, a bit slower, a bit faster. They can decide, and you can try several tempos with them, and then they tell you, we feel the most comfortable in this. The same goes when it comes to the key. If you can choose the key, ask them, let's try this, and this. What is the most comfortable to you? That gives them the power. They feel like they're choosing, and they are choosing, but as a choir director, then you take it from there. A really good thing is to let them choose the order in which they sing the repertoire for a concert. You can influence them and you can have the final decision, but in general, they can choose. And from experience, I have realized that that is a good way to go, because they put the songs in a better order than I would, because they know better what the ratio between difficult songs, easier songs is. So maybe sometimes it is a good thing that they decide. Use arguments they can't beat. For example, I know there are certain people in the choir that know what they're talking about when it comes to singing. But again, you're the choir director and you are learning about being a choir director from several places. So use the arguments they can't contradict. For example, we have here on the channel a big video about the physics of acoustics, or the video how an ear hears a choir. So if you have to instruct something about the basses, you can tell them, well, your wavelength is really long and your frequencies are really low, so it's much more difficult for the human ear to hear you. That is an argument that is really hard to contradict, because it's like you're talking about physics. Or during warm-up, every warm-up you give, you tell them, this warm-up is for doing this, for opening your mouth, for taking a long breath. Don't just give the warm-up, instruct them what it is useful for. That is something they probably don't have the language for. So that gives you a bit more respect. This is a really big special mention. Don't say stuff that you're not sure they're true. If you're in a situation when somebody says that something is wrong, and you do not know the solution, you do not know what is wrong and why something is wrong, don't just offer a solution just for solution's sake. You can tell them, I realize there is an issue. I will look into it, I will think about it, and we will handle it the next rehearsal. Or if you figure out during the rehearsal that something is really wrong, but you do not know the solution for it, don't just start solving the problem without any thinking about it. Take your time, come to the next rehearsal, and try to solve the problem. Don't say things just because you think you have to solve something. You don't have to solve it in most cases immediately. And don't necessarily say there is a problem if you don't have the solution for it. Okay, so be smart about that because you don't want to lose your credibility. You want to be consistent. If you're not sure, say, we're going to try it this way. There are several ways we can try to solve this. I don't know which one will work, but we'll work on it. And this special mention is really hard to take. You have to be prepared to lose. You have to be able to take on a bad performance. You know, if you become weak after a bad performance, I mean, again, take 6 months, okay? That's the reason why the time frame helps, because there will be bad performances. You will lose choir members. People will not like you, maybe, and they will leave the choir. I have had choir singers that have left the choir when they saw me without even giving me the chance. And that's just the way it is. I was not their previous director and they're not staying in the choir. Or they started working with me, they gave me a shot, and then they left the choir because they didn't like me. I mean, that hurts, but what can you do? I mean, I cannot change in the 150 ways that each person would want me to change. I just want to say that there is, when you're doing bad work, you will know it. But if you lose several singers or a group of people leaves the choir because you're directing a choir, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a bad job. And you will always get new choir singers. So be prepared to lose. You will not be liked by everyone. It's just not how it goes. And you can't win all the time. That's just the nature of the job. Okay, and now for the raw honesty, the situations I have been in. Oh my God, it was really painful to even remember some of these because it was like, ugh. But I don't want you to think that I'm this smart person who just knows her stuff. I mean, the reason why I had to think of some of the things mentioned is because I was in situations. There was a situation when we were working for a concert. It was a really stressful time and we had a really stressful rehearsal. The singers were not concentrated. It was really obvious to me that things would be better if they concentrated better. And I wrote in our Facebook group, please be more concentrated. I think that could help. And the choir management, one of the persons from the choir management, sent me a message saying, please don't be that rude to choir members. Please don't instruct them to be concentrated. And I was like, I don't want to talk about the way it went on from there. But I handled that situation completely wrong because I was convinced that I was wrong. I didn't know my authority. I didn't know my job. And I didn't realize that the person saying that to me is the person and not the whole choir. I wish I handled that situation better, but I learned from it. That was early on in my career. Situation number 2. I was working with an ensemble where every decision was a democracy. I instructed one of the members, listen, on that note, you're singing the wrong note. Just correct it. It's not so obvious, but it disrupts the sound. I was not mean. I just said it as a fact. I was gentle about it. But that person started crying and for 15 minutes put on a big deal saying that I was so rude because I was telling her she's out of tune. She took it personally. And the rest of the ensemble was like, that's the way you do music. And Eva was not rude. She was just instructing you. The next situation, I was conducting the choir and the orchestra. The choir was mine, the orchestra was a fellow orchestra we had to perform with. They were not professionals, they were not used to anything that was, structured, and the way we were working and they were working was a completely different thing. At the rehearsal space, my choir was in front of me, the orchestra was behind me, I was in the middle, and at one point, several musicians who were really irritated by me for whatever reason started yelling at me that I'm not doing my job well and everything is just falling apart, and everybody just got frustrated because they were telling that to me. And I was just standing in the middle with 500 people yelling at me and yelling at them, and everybody getting confused. And I was like, listen, 10 seconds of silence. Let's go from the beginning. I will give you a different sign, but you have to know that I have to instruct my choir. The way I handled that situation in that particular moment was okay, but I let them start the composition the way they wanted to, because I figured that would be better, because they would stop. They were really, going against me, and I realized that they will not listen to me. What happened during the performance was they messed up. But I instructed my choir that they will do that, because that's the way it will happen, because they're not listening to me. I can't get them to listen to me, and that will happen. But their mistake will not be that big, because you, my choir, will watch me, and I will give you the sign when I see what the situation is like. That happened. Everything went well. They knew they made a mistake and they respected me further on, and my choir respected me because I handled that situation. Because the reason the situation was really frustrating was because they were not listening to me. I couldn't win. I could say 100 times, you're going to make a mistake, it will not work that way. They wouldn't listen to me. And that sentence, you have to be prepared to lose, sometimes comes into play. I couldn't save them, I could save my choir, and I did. There was a situation when one of the choir presidents of one of my choirs told me in front of the choir that I was stupid and weak because I believed the words of one of my choir singers. She made a whole performance about belittling me and making me look stupid and childish and really without any authority. And it turned out that I was right. The whole choir disliked the choir presidents, and it turned out that I got their respect and she lost the presidency. There was one situation when during the rehearsal I was yelled at by a choir member who is a really long-standing choir member. That person loves conflicts. That singer started yelling at me during the rehearsal, in the middle of rehearsal, because that person didn't know the lines, but that person also missed several rehearsals, and I knew that. So I let that person yell at me, and when that person was finished, I said, I really do not realize why that was necessary. I'm just doing my job, and I think it's really unfair that you have done that now. I will not repeat everything from the start because the choir knows the lines. And then we went on. I will be honest, that happened at the last rehearsal before the pandemic. So no, we're good. It stayed in the air, and then we became really grateful that we can sing again after a while. So things changed. Okay, so these situations, I've been through some stuff. There have been many other situations, but I'm not willing to talk about them because they're like, ugh. Okay, dear choir people, do we realize what a tough position we have? A tough job. But please know that you can do this. You can get their respect. But the main thing is you have to trust yourself and you have to work for it. Is it fair? No, it is not. Is it fair that every person in the choir has an opinion about you and your stuff? No, it is not fair. But the less you think about what is fair, what is not, the better. I consider being a choir director a training field for life. Okay, it is a condensed world we're working in. And if you watch the video how being a choir director improved my life, that point was brought there. People are going to confront you, doubt you, dislike you, communicate with you the way you don't deserve. But you're the choir director. Your position is to be a choir director. That's it. I really hope this video was helpful. I know it's a very long video, but that's the way it works. It's a difficult topic. If you wish to speak to me, you can email me, you can comment down below. If you wish to see more from Enquire to Choir, you can subscribe or watch all of the other videos here. How to gain your choir's trust. I really encourage you to watch that video. It's a different video and it's an old video, but I think it's worth the watch. Thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and conduct well, conductors, and I'll see you next time. Bye!